She was the brightest star Hollywood had ever known. Golden hair, red lips, a smile that could light up any room. The world adored her. Cameras, flashes, crowds screaming her name. They all wanted a piece of Marilyn Monroe. But behind the glamour, behind the laughter, there was a woman searching for something more than fame, more than applause, something she had always longed for, real love. Marilyn had been married 3 times. Each marriage, each relationship carried its own story. But there was one man, one person who in her heart stood above all the rest. Not just for passion, not just for fleeting attraction, but for trust, understanding, and something she rarely allowed herself to feel. Complete vulnerability, complete surrender. That man was Arthur Miller, the brilliant playwright, the mind behind Death of a Salesman and other timeless works. To the outside world, it seemed like an unlikely pairing. Hollywood's dazzling star and New York's serious intellectual. But for Marilyn, this connection felt different. It felt real. It felt safe. In her private writings, later compiled in fragments, she wrote of him in words she never used for anyone else. She spoke of love not just as longing, but as trust. She said he was the only person she had ever met whom she trusted as much as she trusted herself. For a woman who had grown up in foster homes, shuffled from one temporary home to another, who had known loss and loneliness from the earliest age, this statement carried enormous weight. Friends and confidants recalled her describing him differently. She would smile in a quiet, almost shy way when she spoke of Arthur. She would say, "I think this is the first time I've ever really been in love. Not just lustful desire, not just the thrill of attention, real love. Love that made her feel safe, accepted, seen." Before Arthur, there were other men. Jim Doherty, her first husband, represented stability at a young age. He was kind, he cared for her, and for a 16-year-old Norma Jean, that was enough. But as she grew into Marilyn Monroe, the woman the world knew, she realized she wanted something more, something deeper, something real. Then came Joe DiMaggio, baseball legend, national hero, fiercely protective. Their marriage lasted only 9 months, but the intensity of their connection left its mark. Joe loved her, yes, but he also had expectations she struggled to meet. The fire between them was undeniable, but it often burned too hot, too fast. And yet, even after their divorce, he remained a constant presence, a symbol of care, devotion, and protection. Arthur Miller was different. He saw her not just as Marilyn Monroe, the icon, but as Norma Jean, the woman beneath the glamour. He admired her mind, shared her thoughts, joked with her in ways no one else could. In her letters, she wrote of laughter, companionship, a bond she had never known before. She spoke of protecting him, of wanting to make him happy, because his happiness felt like her own. With Arthur, she felt a connection that was emotional, intellectual, and spiritual. Yet love, even the deepest kind, is never without challenge. She longed for children, a family, a home, dreams that were disrupted by miscarriages and public scrutiny. Arthur, brilliant though he was, could not always navigate her fragile emotional world. But despite the struggles, her writings show a devotion unlike anything she had expressed before. She did not write in passing. She did not flirt with hyperbole. Her love for him was deliberate, profound, and intensely personal. Her words reflect a woman who had been used, admired, and misunderstood for most of her life. A woman who had been cast as the dumb blonde, the object of fantasy rather than the person she truly was. And yet with Arthur, she found a man who could look past the persona, past the image, and see her essence. It was a rare gift, one that she treasured above all else. Marilyn's story is often told in fragments, flashes of film, tabloid headlines, rumors whispered in hotel corridors. But if you look closer, the private notes and letters paint a different picture. A picture of a woman who, despite fame and fortune, valued something money could not buy. A woman who, despite being adored by millions, found herself lonely, searching, hoping. And when she met Arthur, she found a kind of love that was nearly impossible to find in her life. A love of trust, respect, and deep emotional resonance. Even as her life continued with public highs and private lows, her heart seemed to hold on to the memory of what she had with him. She may have smiled at parties, attended premieres, laughed with friends, but in her quiet moments, she returned to the truth she had discovered with Arthur Miller, that there had been a man she could trust completely, a man she could love with every piece of her soul, That is the haunting beauty of Marilyn Monroe. The woman who shone brightest on screen was searching for something far more profound off-screen. And in Arthur, she seemed to have glimpsed it. Love not for fame, not for beauty, not for possession, but for trust, connection, and being truly seen. Even in a life full of allure and adoration, that kind of love remained rare. And perhaps in her heart, that was the love she would never let go of, even as the world continued to demand more of her than she could give. As the years moved forward, Marilyn's life became more complicated, more fragile, more unpredictable. The laughter on screen, the applause from the crowd, the flashing cameras, they all continued, but in private she struggled. Behind the glamour, she was a woman still searching for something deeper than fame, something that the world could not give her, something she had glimpsed once with Arthur Miller. Her career remained a whirlwind. The public adored her, but the private reality was full of sleepless nights, anxiety, and the lingering pain of broken dreams. She dated men who were powerful, charismatic, and intriguing, the Kennedys among others. Yet none of those relationships carried the same weight, the same quiet reassurance she had once felt. Friends noticed that when she spoke of past loves, her tone softened most when she mentioned Arthur. There was reverence, a hint of longing, and an unmistakable tenderness. In the months before her death, Marilyn often revisited her past in letters and private notes. She wrote about wanting to find peace, wanting to be happy, wanting love that was more than a performance or a fleeting thrill. She didn't always use names, but those who knew her well believed that her words often pointed toward Arthur Miller. The way she described her longing, her trust, her hope, it was not the language of infatuation, but of something she had once experienced and had never truly forgotten. Friends who spent time with her in those final weeks noticed her reflective mood. She spoke of love, of mistakes, of regrets, but also of the moments that had felt real, the moments that had touched her soul. George Barris, a photographer who spent hours with her that summer, recalled her saying that there had been one man who understood her in a way no one else ever did. She did not always mention Arthur by name, but for those who knew her history, it was clear who she meant. She spoke softly, almost as if admitting a secret only she could understand. Even Joe DiMaggio, who remained a protective presence in her life, could not fill the void she carried. He loved her, yes, with intensity and devotion, but there was a difference. With Joe, her life had moments of passion and drama, of rescue and protection. With Arthur, there had been understanding, connection, trust, a love that went beyond need and desire, a love that seemed almost impossible to achieve in Hollywood. In her private reflections, she returned to the idea of that love repeatedly. She wrote of wanting to feel safe, of wanting to be truly seen, of wanting a partner who could stand beside her not because of her fame, but because of who she really was. And in Arthur, for a time, she had found that. Perhaps that is why so many who knew her believed that in her heart, he remained the only man she ever truly loved. Not just someone to be adored, but someone who could hold her soul. As August 1962 approached, the pressure around her grew unbearable. Work, personal struggles, and the weight of her own expectations pressed down on her. Yet even amid this chaos, she reached for memories of trust and love, clinging to the hope that perhaps she could still find happiness. Conversations with friends and her psychiatrist reveal a woman attempting to reconcile the life she had lived with the love she had once known. She was reflective, sometimes joyful, sometimes deeply sad, and always searching for understanding. The night of her death remains shrouded in mystery. Speculation swirled, accident, suicide, conspiracy. But beneath all of that, the human story is clear. Marilyn Monroe was a woman who had loved deeply, who had experienced trust in a way she had rarely known, and who had carried that love quietly in her heart until the very end. George Barris later remarked that in her final weeks, the love she spoke of most intimately, most tenderly, was the love she had once shared with Arthur Miller. Even if she never said aloud the words, "He is the only man I truly loved," her life, her letters, and the memories shared by friends suggest that this was her truth. There was a man who reached her in a way no one else could, a man who earned not just her desire, but her trust, her admiration, and her whole heart. And perhaps in those moments of quiet reflection, she knew that some love once experienced never truly leaves us, even if the world around us continues to demand more than we can give. Her story reminds us of the complexity of human emotion. The woman adored by millions was, in private, searching for one connection that would make her feel whole. The world wanted the icon, the goddess, the entertainer, but Marilyn wanted someone who could love her entirely. Not the legend, not the image, but Norma Jean. And in Arthur Miller, for a brief shining moment, she found it. It is that love, quiet, profound, and enduring, that stands out as perhaps the greatest revelation of her life. The love that endured beyond the flashbulbs, beyond the fame, beyond the tragedy. It is the love that whispers to us through her letters, her diaries, and the memories of those who knew her best. Even in the chaos of her final days, it is clear that this was the love she held most closely. In the end, Marilyn Monroe's life was one of contrasts, laughter and sorrow, fame and loneliness, desire and longing. And yet through it all there is a simple, enduring truth. She loved. Deeply, truly, and with a trust that few ever experienced. Arthur Miller may not have been perfect, and their love may not have lasted, but he became the man she carried in her heart, the one she believed could see her fully. Perhaps that is her true confession, hidden in diaries, whispered to friends, and lived quietly in the moments between the cameras. And maybe that is what makes her story unforgettable. Not just the legend, the icon, or the glamorous facade, but the real woman who, for all her fame and beauty, wanted only one thing: to be loved completely, and to love completely in return.